welcome back to my studio. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm so happy you're here, hopefully subscribed. I appreciate you so much. I am excited today because I am working on some of the final details for a collection launch that I've been preparing for quite a while. These are original paintings. All of them are floral pieces this time for spring, obviously. And I've been working on them off and on probably since January. I think there's going to be either 12 or 14 paintings that I've prepared to release on my website, hopefully this week or next week. So I kind of wanted to bring you behind the scenes of the finishing details of an original collection. And so this video is going to kind of have a little bit of painting, not so much a tutorial, but kind of just a behind the scenes, like day in the life with me while I prepare all the little details that go into getting original paintings finished, getting them varnished, getting them signed and photographed and ready to go onto my website for you to enjoy. So first things first, we've got to get these paintings finished because I haven't finished all of the little details on all of them. I've got about 3 or 5 paintings that I'd really love to get finished for you. This is one of them. I've got another one that's kind of in progress here, and I'm just gonna kind of film a little bit of me painting, talk you through a little bit of it, and you can see I guess personally I really love starting paintings. I really have to push myself to finish them, not because I don't love finishing the process, but because I don't want to mess it up. And a lot of times I find myself pausing whenever I really like how a painting is going, and I'm like, I take a lot of time to kind of think over what steps I might take next, and get those little tiny finishing details done so that they can be ready for you. I'm excited to add the tiny details to these paintings that I've had in the works for a while. I'm going to use acrylic paint, and this is the Amsterdam brand. I really like that brand of paint. This is Phthalo Blue specifically, and then I already have some titanium white acrylic paint on my palette. So I'm just getting a little bit of that white and a little bit of the blue on my brush and mixing up a lighter shade of blue. You could see that I got the paintbrush out of my water cup. It is a flat brush, and I wiped it off, got all the water off, and mixed up that paint. This is a little bit of a bigger brush than I would typically use for tiny details, but I'm trying to get a good base down of these flowers. So my thought process here is there's some areas that feel like they are a little bit bare. They're mostly greenery, and I'm just trying to layer in some flowers because most bouquets are really layered, and you can just pop in some of these little tiny flowers. So I'm going to do a few layers. I am going to end up switching brushes, but this brush I'm just using the edge of the brush, and it gets me the base layer that I need. And the paint's pretty thick. It's covering well. I've got some layers that I'm really wanting to cover, or make sure that these flowers are prominent, so I want my paint to be pretty thick on my brush. Might have to go touch up a few places to do 2 layers of blue, but hopefully not. I think that this is a pretty good consistency of paint or thickness of paint. It's on my brush pretty good. I typically add odd numbers of flowers, so here you can see I added 5 of those blue flowers. And I am switching brushes now, so I just got this out of my water cup, dried it off real good, and I'm going to mix up a new shade of blue using the same blue and white paint. I just wanted a little bit of a different shade. This time I am going to be adding details to the vase. So I wanted to use the same blue so that it keeps a really nice the paint palette is cohesive, the colors are cohesive, so I'm using the same blue from the flowers and just changing up that shade a little bit. And I'm really just adding little dots and dashes to make a cute little pattern on my vase. I love a good white and blue vase. You know, you see a lot of vases that have the white and blue flowers and stuff like that. So I'm just giving a little nod to that with these blue patterns on my white vase. And really truly just making some little lines. It's meant to be whimsical, so my lines aren't perfect, my dots aren't perfect, not everything's perfectly aligned, but that's how I like it. And I think it just, you know, there's beauty in the imperfections, and I'm a whimsical gal, so I really like the whimsical look to this kind of, you know, the dashes are a little bit crooked or they're not lined up quite right, but they're still really like readable and cohesive. So I'm just adding a few details to the top of the vase here. I didn't really have a plan in mind with how I was going to do the pattern on the vase. I just kind of was going for it, and I'm making sure that the pattern feels like it fits the vase pretty well, and goes along with the shape that I've got. And now I am using a little bit of lighter blue. I lightened it just a little with some extra white, and coming in and touching up these flowers, adding a little extra layers to the petals with the same brush. This is the type of brush I would typically use for details like this. It's pretty small, but it's not too small. I'm just going over each of these flowers just a little bit, cleaning them up. Some of the edges weren't quite how I liked them with the bigger brush, and the paint is still wet enough to where I can kind of work with it and make sure that my edges are clean and crisp and nice. The paint consistency again is pretty thick. I've just got a lot of paint on my brush, even though it's a tiny brush. And here we're adding some details to that fifth flower up at the top. So I think I'm gonna go with a blue center for these flowers as well, which I think is gonna be cute, a darker blue. Excited to see how that turns out, but first I'm gonna add a few petals, like smaller petals. I mixed just a tiny bit of blue in with the white, and I think that this gives a nice petal, layered petal look to these flowers. Gives them a little bit more interest. My paintings are really all about layers and, you know, adding those little details, kind of a maximalist vibe. I'm definitely not a minimalist, so the more layers the better sometimes. Just adding tiny little petals, little layer of petals to these cuties. And then I'm mixing up a new shade of blue, making it a little darker than I have with the other shades. So mostly blue, not a lot of white, and just adding a little center to each of these flowers. And I think that that really makes them pop, makes them stand out against the vase pattern. Super fun. And there's still a few details to add, but we'll do that later. Gotta let this dry. So yeah, so fun. So the next thing on my to-do list for getting ready for the original painting launch is to photograph my work. It is currently evening and while I'm filming this, and the lighting's pretty good in my studio right now, so I want to take advantage of that. And I'm going to do a variety of photos for each piece. Some that are just of the piece with the white background, and some probably on my easel, kind of like staged in my studio to give some good variety for the photos. So I'm also going to take a few photos with my camera a few photos with my phone and spend a good amount of time editing those photos to make sure that the color is right and it feels fresh and crisp and bright for my website. I have just a little thumbtack right here on my wall, and so that way there's like nothing else around the piece. And I'm just gonna kind of put each painting right here and take some different angles and all that good stuff. If you have questions about my photography process for the website, it's pretty simple, but if you have questions, let me know in the comments. Feel free to reach out and I would love to chat with you further, or if there's something like related to that I can make a video about for you, let me know. So I want to take a minute to highlight this piece in particular. I really love how this one turned out. I want to talk about it because this is one of those pieces where it's like a perfect example of how I said that I don't always love finishing paintings as much as I love starting them, just because it's really hard for me to think about possibly messing it up or, you know, not taking it in the direction that I want it to go. But this piece was one that I think I started about 2 years ago. I'll see if I have a photo of it through its progress so that you can kind of see. And I was just completely stuck on it, and I decided to take it a new direction a little bit. Same composition, but I really changed it up with these little checkered patterns on the like tablecloth that the flowers are sitting on. And I love how it turned out. I was really worried that I wasn't gonna love the result if I kept with it how I had started it several years ago, a couple years ago. But I just needed some time. Now is its time to shine, and I really love the details that this piece ended up having. And I love that just like it ended up a little bit differently because I took the time to just like change things up and try something new with it, take it in a completely different direction, try something like a little bit bold. I wasn't sure if these little checkers would turn out, but I just love it and thought I'd give you a little behind the scenes look at this piece. Okay, so I have photographed almost all of my pieces. I just have these little guys left because they still need a few little tiny details, but we're almost done, almost there. Once I finish the details on these pieces, I'm gonna sign the backs of all of them. I need to start considering signing the fronts. I haven't done that, but I feel like it gives you a little bit more recognition and maybe it's more recognizable for people to know your artwork. But I am gonna sign the backs of these just because that's what I typically do, but I'm definitely gonna consider it in the future, signing the fronts. And then I am going to take the time to scan each of these pieces just so that I have a file of everything. So I'm gonna, and they fit on my scanner. I think with the exception of maybe 1 or 2 pieces, I might take those to go get scanned, or I might just take some really nice photos of them. But I would like to have the files just in case, you know, it could be used for prints one day, or, you know, my licensing portfolio or something like that. So I like to do the scanning step definitely before I do any varnishing to the pieces. So after I scan the pieces, I will take them outside and do some varnishing so that they, you know, aren't going to collect dust and aren't going to yellow, and they'll just be nice and protected for the next home that it goes to. It's forever home. And then I'll get everything listed on my website for an upcoming launch. I haven't picked a date yet, but stay tuned for that, or perhaps this video will be live by the time I've picked a date. The best way to find out about my collection launches is definitely signing up for my newsletter. So I have an email newsletter. I don't put it out very often, but I do, you know, announce important things or launches or whatever, and give out coupons or sales to newsletter subscribers. So you definitely want to sign up. I'll put the link to that below. And I really appreciate you hanging out with me today on YouTube and seeing a little behind the scenes here. If there's any topics you'd like me to kind of like expand on, or you have questions, feel free to leave that in the comments below, and I would be happy to work on that and share whatever tips and tricks I might have. And I just appreciate you being here so much, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe, all the things, and have a beautiful day.